Hello everyone, good evening. Okay, I hope I am audible. Uh, all right. So, welcome to today's session. We are continuing with UPSC CSC Medieval India series. Okay, the old NCERT textbook or say History of Medieval India by Satish Chandra sir. This textbook is being followed. We have so far completed about 13 lectures and we are towards the end of this textbook. Okay, we will have only 2 more classes in this textbook and it is done. Medieval India is over. So today we are going to see what happened till the reign of Aurangzeb. Just before up till Shah Jahan we will see, and in the upcoming session there is another chapter called economic and cultural aspects of Mughal rule as a whole, and the last chapter the decline of Mughal Empire, that is dealing with Aurangzeb and his policies and the followers who comes afterwards. Okay, so there will be total 16 lectures in Medieval India series. So today is the 14th lecture. So once again, welcome to today's session, and please do subscribe to this channel and share with your friends, and don't forget to like and comment in the below so that more people can see and avail all these resources. Okay, so let's begin. Today's chapter is India in the first half of 17th century. So I hope you remember whatever we have learned in the previous class. And we studied about Akbar, we studied about his policies, what was the economy, and his administrative systems, Mansabdari system, and all these things. So I hope you remember at least some of it, because we will have to, we will be talking about Mansabdari system today also, because there has been some changes brought in that system afterwards when Jahangir and Shah Jahan came to reign. So if you remember the original Mansabdari system, it would be easier for you to understand what are the new changes. Even otherwise, don't worry, go back and read it whenever you get time, and then when you read the slides of today, you will get it. Okay, so to the newcomers, if you have any questions or queries, please feel free to put it in the YouTube live chat. I will immediately get back to you. I will be checking the chat once in a while after a couple of slides each. Okay, so let's begin. So what was happening in India in the first half of 17th century? So we are going to see a period between 1600 and 1650. Okay, this is the time period that we are going to look into, and we will start by the political and administrative developments in India. So right now, Mughal Empire is at its zenith. Okay, Akbar led the, Akbar actually consolidated Mughal position in India, which was followed by Jahangir, who brought it even higher. He settled the Deccan policies and all. And Shah Jahan, under Shah Jahan, the Mughal glory reached its highest peak. Okay, so overall, during these periods, political and administrative systems in India were actually very well functioning and extremely pleasant. And this era was overall a era of progress and growth. Okay, in all fields, we will look into each one of them later on in upcoming chapters and all. But understand that in overall, in almost all the fields, India witnessed progress and development, except maybe in the field of science and technology. Okay, barring that, everywhere else we saw some sincere progress, thanks to two particular rulers, Jahangir and Shah Jahan. These two were very powerful rulers, very eminent and able rulers, and they were able to expand the inherited empire and consolidate them in a very efficient manner. So because of these two rulers, India got a very long years of peace and stability. So naturally, when peace and stability is gained, we will also have economic progress, trade progress, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so overall, some historians call the period of Shah Jahan as the golden age of Mughal India. Okay, the reasons are all these are the reasons. Because of this long-term stability and long-term peace, everything else naturally caught up. In South India also, the situation was very similar. We talked about South India and Deccan politics in the previous class. So I hope you remember at least some of it. So in the end, after all the affairs in Deccan and South India were settled, two states came up to power. One is Bijapur and other is Golconda. We learned how Jahangir managed to establish, or say Shah Jahan managed to establish certain kinds of treaties with each one of them, negotiate certain kind of treaties with each one of them, and was able to achieve long-term peace. So because of these two states, South Indian politics was also seeing some kind of stability and peace for some long term. So we see cultural growth, trade growth, etc. etc. Okay, so overall, Mughal rulers consolidated the administrative system, which was actually developed by Akbar. Akbar is the person who had brought in this kind of system. He borrowed something from Sher Shah and all, but still, among the Mughals, Akbar was the person who came up with such a brilliant system with the help of his Navaratna code and Todarmal, etc., etc. And this system was more or less continued by all the succeeding Mughals, with some minor changes to adapt with the times. Akbar's policy of having very good relationship with Rajputs was also continued. Okay, so when they achieved this kind of a period of peace, naturally they looked into more and more constructing activities. They built new capitals, new buildings, and all these things. Okay, we will study about Mughal buildings and architecture in one of the art and culture sessions. But anyway, we saw all these things happening. In the foreign relations also, India was flourishing. Okay, India was able to achieve a very good relationship, or at least a pleasant relationship with the most of the Central Asian powers. Okay, what are they? The Iran or Persia or whatever you want to. There are plenty of names by which the Iran region is called. You can call it Iran or Persia or Safavids or whatever. Okay, Iran, then Uzbeks. Okay, Uzbeks were or the relationship with Uzbeks is always a roller coaster. Why? Because Uzbeks were more or less the initial enemies of Mughals. Uzbeks are the reason why Babur was pushed into India. Remember, right? When Uzbeks controlled Samarkand, they ousted Babur from there, and Babur had no other choice but to come to Kabul and eventually to India. So relationship between Mughals and Uzbeks are up and down, and it's like a sinusoidal wave. And then Ottoman Turks, very powerful, and these three were the major powers in Asia, and the Mughals had pretty much a very pleasant relationship between all of these powers. So foreign policy was also very good, very flourishing during this time. With all these positives, there are some negatives also. What are the negatives? The most important negative is that all this growing prosperity and power and wealth, everything was confined to the upper sections. It never percolated down towards the lower sections. This was the biggest negative. So the people lived in misery. Okay, the Mughal rulers and nobles and all wealthy sections, they lived in very wealthy and pleasant conditions. But the common man, the peasant, the workers, they lived in misery as usual. Okay, so this was one negative. The other one is obviously the obliviousness to the growth of science and technology. Okay, when science and technology developed in the Western nations, for example, in European regions, it never reflected the same in India or in the Asian nations. This is why Asian nations lagged behind after this part of the history. So about until now, both Asia and Europe are equally competent. But afterwards, this is when the change happens. When Europe will start to look into science and technology, and they will start to develop in that field, and Asian countries get lagged behind. From here onwards, we see that disparity rising and rising and rising and rising, and eventually we know what happens. They will come here and colonize us with ease, and you know the story. Okay, so this is another drawback. And then most importantly, the last drawback was the lack of a proper succession protocol. Okay, there was no primogeniture, so there was always a quarrel between the sons to get the throne. Okay, and the nobles also sometimes got involved, and it was a complete disarray. So whenever one ruler dies, the vacuum that it creates on the throne is filled only after a war of succession, and that is obviously not good for any kind of empire. Forget Mughals, wherever it happens, it's bad. So all these are the negatives as far as Mughal empire was concerned during this time. Okay, but first Jahangir, things went very well. We learned different rulers, etc. And when Akbar was alive itself, all of Jahangir's brothers died. So Jahangir basically could walk into the throne. That it was very easy for him. But immediately after his ascension to the throne, he had to deal with certain issues. So the rebellions were not caused by his brothers because they were already dead. It was actually caused by his own son, the eldest son being Khurram. Sorry, Khushru. Okay, Khurram is Shah Jahan. It's not Shah Jahan who rebels at this point of time. It is Khushru, the eldest of Jahangir's sons. Okay, so Khushru started rebelling, and this is the rebellion that Jahangir had to look into, and this is what made him, come back from Deccan and take care of affairs in Delhi. We talked about this in the previous chapter. Okay, but even then, Jahangir was a very great and able personality. He was able to successfully defeat this rebellion, and he managed to entertain very good relationship with Rajputs. Also, Mewar was one state which never bowed down to the Mughals. Akbar couldn't gain the goodwill of Mewar, but Jahangir completed this. Akbar's policy towards the Rajputs was actually completed by Jahangir. Why? Because that one state which was still creating headaches for Mughals, Mewar, was finally brought into some kind of peace by Jahangir. Not with the help of a sword, but due to his statesmanship and diplomacy and all these things. In Deccan also, Jahangir achieved huge success thanks to his own son Shah Jahan, who was sent to defeat Malik Ambar. That story also we studied in the previous class. So basically, Jahangir expanded the inherited empire towards Deccan, towards West, etc., etc. Okay, but still, one prominent faction which constantly gave headache to the Mughals were the Afghans. Okay, so during the time of Sher Shah Suri, it was Sher Shah Suri. And after that, plenty of other Surs came to power, and they also gave lots of trouble to Akbar and Jahangir and all. So here Jahangir too had to face a set of Afghan chiefs who were actually supported by Hindu Rajas also. Okay, some of the Hindu Rajas who were living in the eastern Indian region, that is Orissa Bengal belt, they also supported the Afghans against the Mughals. Okay, so who are these prominent Hindu kingdoms? It includes Jessore, Kamrup, Chachar, etc. So all these kingdoms together, led by Afghans, went into rebellion in the eastern part of India. So initially Jahangir sent Mansingh. Okay, Raja Mansingh was sent. Earlier Akbar had sent Mansingh to achieve some stability there, and he was called back. And when the rebellion again came out, Jahangir again sent him. Okay, Raja Mansingh was again deputed to eastern part of India to quench this rebellion. Only problem was the rebellion extended for a very long time, and Mansingh was not able to achieve success that peacefully. So what did Jahangir do? He sent another one of his nobles named as Islam Khan. Islam Khan is a very famous personality because of his grandfather. Okay, he is actually the grandson of Sheikh Salim Chishti, very famous Sufi saint, Sheikh Salim Chishti. So Islam Khan went there, and he was very able personality, and he achieved success. Initially he transferred the capital from Rajmahal to Dhaka. Okay, the eastern capital, the provincial capital in the eastern territory of Mughals were transferred from Rajmahal to Dhaka, and then he took up certain strong campaigns against people like Musa Khan and Usman Khan. These are Afghan nobles. Okay, and these two nobles were also thoroughly defeated, and once these two prominent figures were defeated, all others eventually submitted to Islam Khan. And thereby, the backbone of Afghan power in India was completely shattered. So Jahangir basically achieved success in his eastern campaigns as well. Kamrup and Jessore, etc. were annexed to the Mughal territory, and Mughals now have a very powerful hand on Bengal. Okay, so West is already under control thanks to Akbar. Then Mewar eventually came, the conflict with Mewar was finally over in the time of Jahangir. Then thanks to Shah Jahan's activities, Deccan also was submitted towards Jahangir. And now finally, eastern part of India, that is the Bengal Orissa belt, also were annexed to Mughal Empire. So now you can imagine the extent of the empire, a very large empire, which means a long-term it's also a very stable empire now. So long-term peace, long-term stability, flourishing economy, etc., etc. Okay, so overall, despite these kinds of incursions and wars and all, Jahangir was more or less like his father as far as his policy towards these kings were concerned. Even after defeating all these people, Jahangir treated them with sympathy and prosperity and all. Okay, he did not, humiliate these personalities. He treated them with respect, gave them back their kingdom as long as they accept his suzerainty. So that kind of attitude of Jahangir, which was actually inherited from Akbar himself, proved to be very useful. Okay, so when that respect is received, obviously the other person will also be happy that in that kind of an arrangement, and it will be a long lasting relationship. Rather than trying to achieve it through sword, he achieved it through diplomacy. Very good, a great ruler, thereby achieving the goodwill of the people. That also is a factor, right? When you defeat the ruler of one nation, it is not just the ruler you are defeating, the people are also a very big factor. If you humiliate the ruler, the people will be always hostile towards you. Correct. Just think about it. If India and Pakistan goes to war and Pakistan attacks India, Indians are angry against Pakistan. So the population is very important. Okay. So by doing this, benevolent method of administration, Jahangir made sure that he also earned the goodwill of all these people. And he also started to, recruit more Afghans to the Mughal nobility. So this is another policy which was followed by Akbar. Akbar also managed, always maintained a very liberal policy, and he was against orthodoxy, against narrow-mindedness. The Mughal army during Akbar was a combination of everybody. Afghans were there, there were Iranis, Turanis, Indian Muslims, all Rajputs. Okay, so Jahangir followed it. He even gave more and more opportunities for Afghans. So basically, trying to get their favor and establish that kind of stability. And Jahangir was fairly young, okay, 51 years old while all this has been achieved. And it would have been a very long era of peace, but a couple of incidents happened which threatened all these things. Number one, Persian conquest of Kandahar. We will talk about this. Okay. And second one, Jahangir's health. Okay. His health conditions started deteriorating very fast. And Noor Jahan, Jahangir's wife, she got into the main political arena during this time. Okay, I mean that's not a bad thing. Okay, Noor Jahan coming more into the administrative position is not a bad thing, but that phenomenon had various other repercussions. Okay, that is what eventually went bad as far as Jahangir's reign was concerned. So let's see what some aspects about Noor Jahan. Okay, so Noor Jahan was actually, earlier we do not know much about Noor Jahan, but there is a very famous story about her. Her first marriage was about with an Iranian named as Sher Khan. Okay, and Sher Khan died in a clash with one of the Mughal governors of Bengal. And Noor Jahan was actually living with an elderly relation of Jahangir. And after about 4 years, Jahangir actually married her. Okay, by the year 1611, Jahangir married Noor Jahan. So when this marriage happened, okay, this is not just a marriage between two people. Obviously, Noor Jahan's family was also well taken care of by Jahangir. Her father, Itimaduddaulah, okay, he earlier, I mean, during Jahangir's ascension itself, Itimaduddaulah was made the joint diwan. Okay, and later after the marriage, his position was elevated to that of a chief diwan. So Noor Jahan's family also were given very important positions. Noor Jahan's elder brother, okay, her brother Asaf Khan. Asaf Khan, very able personality, very learned person also. He was appointed as Khan-i-Saman. Khan-i-Saman is a post given only to the most trusted people in Mughal service. I hope you remember about Khan-i-Saman. I already talked about in one of the previous classes. So such very important vital positions were given to Noor Jahan's family. And basically, from all this, we can understand that Noor Jahan had the complete confidence of Jahangir. Okay. Also, Asaf Khan's daughter was married to Shah Jahan. In order to make the bond even more stronger, Asaf Khan is Noor Jahan's brother. So Asaf Khan's daughter was actually married to Jahangir's son, that is Shah Jahan or Khurram. Clear? And basically Shah Jahan was the favorite of Jahangir. Why? Because the other son, Khushru, rebelled against him. Okay, and Shah Jahan, instead of rebelling against Jahangir, he actually went to Deccan and took care of everything there. So Jahangir was very impressed by Shah Jahan and he was his favorite at this time. So all these you know, gave that, showed to the world the kind of position that Nur Jahan had uh, in the empire. Okay, that was the kind of confidence she enjoyed under Jahangir. And some historians actually say that there was something called as a junta. Okay, all these people, Nur Jahan, her brother, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and Asaf Khan's son, Asaf Khan's daughter, all these, people together form some kind of a group. And they say that it is this group which controlled everything in the Mughal Empire. This group decided who to be posted in one position, what to be done in certain matters and all. Okay, but other set of historians do not believe to this story. Okay, despite, these are very influential people. These are a set of very influential people, but still Jahangir was the sole sovereign. He, although he might have listened to any of these people, doesn't mean Jahangir was controlled by this group or anything. Okay, so interpretations go both ways, but most of the historians believe that Jahangir was still very powerful and he was not at all, controlled by this Nur Jahan's junta. But during those times, some of the other Mughal nobles were not happy with what was going on, and obviously there was some resistance or some kind of friction between Nur Jahan's junta and the people who did not like it. Okay, so remember, initially even Shah Jahan was in this group. So this is the group that we call today as kitchen cabinet. Okay, there is a common term called as kitchen cabinet. So it is not exactly an official group or anything, but it simply means the prime minister and the set of people who enjoys the most confidence of prime minister. This set of people may be council, one of the ministers may not be a politician at all. Okay, but whoever has that kind of confidence with prime minister is usually together makes the kitchen cabinet. So this Nur Jahan's junta was something like that, although it's nothing official. All right, but anyway, some historians say that this ambition, or say this kind of political character exhibited by Nur Jahan, in the long term led to the breach between Shah Jahan and herself. Okay, and eventually led to a rebellion of Shah Jahan against Jahangir in the year 1622. Clear? So what happened that we are going to see. Okay, what led to this kind of distrust or this kind of rebellion and all. So when Nur Jahan came to the throne, or say as the Empress of India, coins were actually struck in her name. Okay, one side of the coin, it was her name, the other side the emperor's name. Okay, so there is no other queen in the history of medieval India who earned this kind of position in a court. Nur Jahan was that kind of personality. Maybe Mumtaz Mahal, exception. But other than that, Nur Jahan is the one personality who had this kind of influence in Mughal court. And due to her origins, okay, she is actually Persian. So because of that, Persian art and culture also witnessed a huge growth in medieval India. Nur Jahan was a very constant companion of Jahangir. She did not take advantage of him or anything. Okay, she was very faithful to her husband, and she enjoyed going to hunting with him, etc., etc. So she had complete faith of her husband. So this is the time when some political things happen towards the northwest of India. Okay, we are going to see why Shah Jahan rebelled. So the immediate cause is that there were certain issues in Kandahar. Okay, Uzbeks tried to take or attack Kandahar. Okay, I'm sorry, not Uzbeks, Safavids. Okay, so when this happened, Jahangir sent Shah Jahan towards Kandahar to quench the rebellion, to quench this attack, to defend Mughal Empire. Shah Jahan was worried that if he goes there, obviously it will be a long battle, so he will have to stay there for a very long time. And during this time, Nur Jahan might actually take control of the empire. Okay, conspire against Shah Jahan and make political moves against Shah Jahan. So instead of going directly to Kandahar, Shah Jahan put forth certain demands towards his father Jahangir. Okay, he asked for a huge army and various assurances. huge Jaghir, etc., etc. And this actually earned the displeasure of Jahangir. Jahangir was very angry with Shah Jahan. I mean, instead of obeying his orders, Shah Jahan has made demands. Okay, this is unacceptable. So he wrote a letter to his son, a very harsh letter towards Shah Jahan. This was again a bad move. Okay, I mean, this made things even worse. So this is the reason why he rebelled. Okay, he did not want to stay out of capital for a very long time. So basically, you know, it led to a small kind of rebellion. I mean, a decent rebellion. So Shah Jahan, instead of going to Kandahar, he sorry, he moved towards Agra. Okay, towards the capital. He moved towards Agra. Because of his earlier Deccan activities and the time he spent there, plenty of kings from Deccan were also on his side. So the entire Deccan army, the nobles there, etc., etc., also supported Shah Jahan. Gujarat and Malwa also offered their support towards Shah Jahan. Obviously, Shah Jahan had the support of his father-in-law, Asaf Khan. Asaf Khan's daughter is married to Shah Jahan. So obviously, Asaf Khan wants Shah Jahan to be in the throne, to be the next successor. Okay, so he also supported Shah Jahan. Some of the nobles in the Mughal court also supported Shah Jahan. So with all this amassed power, Shah Jahan started a rebellion towards Agra. But Jahangir deputed a very able personality, a very able general named as Mahabad Khan to quench this rebellion. And it succeeded. Okay, Muhammad Khan was able to successfully defeat and defend the kingdom of Jahangir against Shah Jahan, despite Shah Jahan having such a great force. I mean, the only reason Shah Jahan did not have to face complete humiliation was because of the strong stand of the Mewar contingent. Okay, some of the Rajput contingents also helped in this battle in Shah Jahan's side, and Mewar was one of them. And because of the valiant fight brought out by the Mewar contingent, Shah Jahan was able to save his face. That's all. That was the kind of defeat that Mahabad Khan managed to inflict on Shah Jahan. So, once the entire thing settled down, Shah Jahan wrote apology letters towards Jahangir. Okay, I mean, he did not want to rebel anymore, so he finally accepted all these things, and he wrote an apology letter towards his father Jahangir. Okay, so along with this apology, two of Shah Jahan's son, Dara, that is Dara Shikoh, and Aurangzeb, who will be the last great Mughal. Okay, both of these sons were also sent into Jahangir's court as hostages. Okay, this was another practice that was very common during those times. Nowadays, we cannot believe that, right? The son is actually sending the grandchildren towards the grandfather as hostages. Okay, I mean, that is absurd idea right now. But during those times, everything was political. So these kinds of activities were very much prevalent. Okay, so Dara and Aurangzeb were taken to Jahangir's court as hostages. And in return, Jahangir gave a huge tract of land in Deccan to Shah Jahan and all. So all these things happened in 1626. Okay, so thing is, this rebellion conducted by Shah Jahan distracted the Mughal Empire for a considerable period of 4 years. If you remember, it started around 1622 and it ended in 1626. So about 4 years, this rebellion distracted the Mughal Empire, and Kandahar was lost. Okay, Shah Jahan was supposed to go to Kandahar and defend it, but instead he rebelled against Agra. So Kandahar was lost towards the Central Asians. So this rebellion and this lack of focus by Mughal Empire in other matters emboldened certain other factions also. For example, the Deccanis. They were able to recover a lot of territory which Akbar earlier conquered. Okay. Overall, I mean, this was a period when Mughals were distracted from everything else because of this internal rebellion. And this is actually a very basic weakness that we see in Mughals and in almost all the empires that existed in medieval India. Okay, why? Because when a successful prince comes to power, he always tended to become a rival to the Sultan. Okay, in this case, it is Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was very successful, very able, very powerful. And the moment he had that kind of power, he challenged the empire. Same goes for almost all the kingdoms. We see in history that plenty of kings got to throne by killing his own father or maybe his own uncle or whatever. We will see this again. This same thing happened to Shah Jahan also. When Aurangzeb became extremely successful, he rebelled against Shah Jahan. We know what happened to Shah Jahan. He was actually put into kind of house arrest till the day he died. We know that romantic story regarding his view towards Taj Mahal and all these things. So this is something that was very prevalent in medieval Indian times. Okay, and because of all these rebellions and etc., due to the very bad health of Jahangir, the effective power of the Mughal Empire fell into the hands of Nur Jahan Begum. This was something that Shah Jahan was trying to avoid, but it happened anyway. Okay, Shah Jahan has earned the displeasure of the emperor, and the emperor's health was failing. So Nur Jahan emerged as these power in Mughal Empire. That doesn't mean she took decisions all on her own. No, she always discussed and did whatever Jahangir wanted her to do. All right. The other danger that existed at this time was that all these internal wars and rebellions encouraged some of the nobles, the ambitious nobles who were trying or who were waiting for an opportunity to gain more power. So some nobles, sided with Jahangir. Some of them sided with Shah Jahan. So everybody wanted favors and higher status and all. So they also tried to take advantage of all these situations. And Mahabad Khan, for one, he emerged as a very glorious person. Okay, I mean he defeated Shah Jahan and that huge army. So he earned a lot of goodwill with the empire. Obviously, the other nobles were not happy about it. They wanted to clip his wings. Okay, so what did they do? They started campaigning against, Mahabad Khan. Not campaigning, conspiring against Mahabad Khan and all. And Mahabad Khan obviously did not like this. He was, so disgruntled that he came with a trusted body of Rajput soldiers and he seized Jahangir himself. Okay, Muhammad Khan was not happy with what was going on the Mughal court. So he came with a mighty Rajput force and he basically seized Jahangir in the banks of River Jhelum. Okay, the Mughals were on track towards Kabul, and on their way, Mahabad Khan got an opportunity and he took it. He captured Jahangir. Nur Jahan somehow managed to escape. Okay, she crossed the river and she escaped. But she wanted to be with Jahangir, so she came back and surrendered herself to Mahabad Khan. The thing is, Nur Jahan is very, brilliant, able personality, and accepting this summit by Nur Jahan was a blunder committed by Mahabad Khan. Why? Because Nur Jahan, very slowly, in a span of 6 months, she tried to, overturn most of these nobles to her side. Okay, those people who were supporting Mahabad Khan, one by one, she managed to get them all into her side, Jahangir's side. And it was already too late when Mahabad Khan found this out. So he had no choice but to flee. So Mahabad Khan basically, left Jahangir and he took shelter under Shah Jahan. Mahabad Khan went to Shah Jahan and he stayed in Deccan for a very long time and he was waiting for an opportunity to claim power when it presented. Okay, so the defeat of Mahabad Khan is considered as one of the greatest victories of Nur Jahan. She did not draw sword or anything. She did not have to fight a bloody battle. She did it all through sheer diplomacy and her manipulative powers and all, if I may say so. Okay, but the thing is, despite having achieved this kind of power into her own hands, this was very much short-lived. Why? Because Jahangir died the very next year in 1627. Within a span of some months, Jahangir breathed his last. So Nur Jahan's claim to be the Empress of India went into drains. Okay, the emperor is dead. So, now obviously someone else has to take that throne and all. A new king is going to come and all. And Asaf Khan, Nur Jahan's brother, he was waiting for this opportunity. Why? Because I mean, Shah Jahan is his son-in-law. So Asad Khan was waiting to install Shah Jahan into the Mughal throne, and Jahangir's death gave him that opportunity. So he immediately sent letters to Shah Jahan to come to Agra and take the throne. And Shah Jahan basically made Noor Jahan a virtual prisoner. Okay, I mean, she was not actually thrown into prison or anything, but a kind of a home arrest. She was still very given in a very prominent position and all, but more or less a virtual prisoner. All right. Shah Jahan had earlier itself, done or dealt with all the other competitions by killing almost all his brothers and cousins and all. All his rivals, including his imprisoned brothers, cousins, etc., were done to death. This is something very common in medieval times. Nowadays, we can't imagine it. Okay, killing a brother to achieve power or property or whatever, that is very bad. But in those times, politics was above almost everything. The power was above everything, or in a sense. So Shah Jahan had already dealt with the cousins, his cousins and his brothers and all. So he could straight away march to Agra and take the throne when Jahangir died. Okay, and since that point onwards, since the ascent of Shah Jahan, Noor Jahan continues her life in a retired manner. I mean, she is still very given all kinds of comforts and all, but still she retired from politics as such and lived for another 18 years until she died. And she was buried in Lahore, very close to where Jahangir was buried. Okay, so this ends one of the prominent eras of Mughals under Jahangir's time. Now we are going to see the foreign policy of Mughals. Any questions? Did Mughals ever conquered Jammu and Kashmir? Yes, I think I told you that, right? During the time of Akbar, I told you, in order to prevent some Central Asian invasions towards India, Akbar deputed a lot of people in, his nobles into Jammu Kashmir and, prevented all that from happening. Okay, during Akbar's time, there was a conflict with Jammu Kashmir and all. I think we already covered that in 2-3 classes ago. Okay. Now, foreign policy of Mughals. That is a very important thing, very possible mains question. So try to understand. Might be a bit confusing. I mean, some other empires are also going to come into the picture. So, but still try to understand. Okay. So basically, the foreign policy of Mughals is based on Central Asian politics. Okay, very simply we can say that. Because the Mughals never cared a lot about navy, and overall in the world itself, the naval powers were, I mean, there were strong naval powers such as Portuguese and all, but still, Portuguese couldn't actually threaten the Mughal Empire at this point of time because Mughals were at their zenith. Even Gujarat was under their control. So, despite everything that Portuguese can do in the sea, they couldn't capture a single territory in land as long as Mughals were in power or a strong Mughal personality is in the throne. Okay, so the foreign policy is basically set with neighboring kingdoms, especially with Central Asia. Europe is yet to come to India. Okay, other European powers and all, the overseas trade is not well established yet, so they are yet to come into contact. So we can say Central Asian politics is what basically designed Mughal foreign policy. So as we have discussed in some of the previous classes, in Central Asia, there was a very powerful empire led by Timur, the Timurid Empire. And towards the end of it, the empire was disintegrated and it got divided into smaller pieces, fragmented. And 3 important powers came into the being. That is the Uzbeks, the Safavids, and the Ottoman. Okay, Safavids are basically, we can also call them Iran or we can call them Persian. Okay, all are the same. Okay, for the purposes of this chapter, all these 3 powers are the same. Okay, so if I use Iran in some place and Persian in some other place, don't get confused. It's both are the same thing only. Okay, so these 3 were the main powers that emerged in Central Asia. And they established themselves in 3 prominent places. Uzbeks established themselves in Central Asia, that is the Transoxiana region. Safavid dynasty established themselves in Iran, and the Ottomans established themselves in Turkey. So that's why they are known as Ottoman Turks. Okay, And Uzbeks, as you know, were natural enemies to Mughals. I mean, we all know that. Babur was basically pushed into India by these people, Uzbeks. So we know that story. And Uzbeks themselves had trouble with the other important powers in Asia also. Okay, they clashed with Safavids from time to time. And because especially for the area called Khurasan. We had mentioned this area very long time back. I think in one of the initial lectures of medieval India. Khurasan is a very important plateau. Why? Because it controlled the trade routes from China to Mediterranean. So controlling that region is very important as far as trade is concerned. So these Central Asian kingdoms always fought for Khurasan. Okay, and Safavids and Mughals usually allied against Uzbeks. Uzbeks always constantly, harassed Mughals, and they also entered into battles with Safavids. So an enemy is a friend, right? I mean, there is an old saying like that. So Safavids and Mughals tried to ally against Uzbeks. What did the Uzbeks do now? Uzbeks tried to exploit the sectarian differences between Safavid rulers of Iran who had ruthlessly persecuted the Sunnis. Okay, so Safavid, as you know, the Iranian rulers, they are Shia Muslim. Okay, Mughals are Sunni Muslim. Uzbeks are also Sunni Muslims. Okay, so Uzbeks and Mughals are Sunnis. Iranians or Safavids are Shias. So Uzbeks tried to play the sectarian card. Okay, playing Sunnis against Shias, thereby trying to achieve Mughal support in attacking Iran. That was the brilliant idea. All right, but the Mughal rulers, they were actually very broad-minded. They were religiously tolerant people. They did not play into this. Okay, they are. I mean, people like can you possibly imagine people like Akbar or Jahangir playing into the hands of Uzbeks? Maybe Aurangzeb will. Okay, but Shah Jahan, Akbar, Jahangir, these people were very broad-minded and religiously tolerant. They did not play into this sectarian strife. They stood away from it. Uzbeks, they whenever they could, they tried to stir up things. They actually tried to create issues or problems in Afghanistan. Actually, they sent an Afghani noble, a fanatic Afghani religious preacher, into certain areas in Afghanistan to try and work out this communal or say religious sentiments and play Sunnis against Shias and Shias against Sunnis and all. But none of that worked. Okay, because of the strong power and command the Mughals had, they managed to keep the kingdom together. Ottomans or the Usmani Turks, conscious of the danger to the eastern flank and that the rise of Safavids would encourage Shiaism in their own territories, they were very apprehensive about the rise of Iranians. Ottomans were also Sunnis. Okay, so they also thought that Shias will, rise of Iran means Shias will come into their own territory as well. So Ottomans did not like this idea at all. And there was a very famous battle between Ottoman Empire and the Iranians, and Ottoman Empire wins the battle. Okay, that is a different part of history. We do not have to go into that. We are looking into the perspective in Central Asia from the angle of Mughals. Okay, so far, if you have not understood what is going on in medieval India, don't worry. Just understand from the point of India. Okay, as far as India is concerned, the Mughal rulers were extremely tolerant towards all religions. They did not play into the sectarian strife that the Central Asian rulers were trying to create. Okay, so basically, India at that time had cordial relationship with all these people, irrespective of the attitudes of different religious sects. Clear? At least they tried to do that. Uzbeks often created issues, but Mughals dealt with it in a very prominent fashion. But the thing is, now the Ottomans have defeated Iranians. Okay, so the Ottoman threat from the west made the Persians keen to befriend the Mughals. So now Persians or the Iranians, they have to have the help of Mughals. Okay, so basically this is how it is located. We have India here. Okay, and then adjacent to India, you have the Uzbeks. And then we have the Iranians or the Safavids or the Persians. And then you have the Ottoman Turks. Okay, so because of the attacks and all from Ottomans, Iranians asked India for help. Okay, they have to stay united. Otherwise, the Uzbeks and Ottomans might vanquish this Central Asian kingdom and they will be in huge trouble. Okay, and Uzbekistan, tried to play politics here. They, after coming to India, they also went to Ottoman Empire and suggested a tripartite alliance against Persians. All these three are Sunnis. Okay, this is Sunnis. This is India is Sunni kingdom, and Uzbek is also Sunni kingdom. This is the Iranian kingdom is on the only Shia kingdom. So Uzbeks tried to ally all the Sunni kingdoms together against the Shia kingdom. Same thing, religious, taking sectarian strife into hands. Same thing happened. Mughals were not interested for two reasons. One, they did not like the idea of sectarian strife. And two, Mughals knew very well that if Iran falls, then Central Asian politics will lose the balance. Uzbeks will take its place and they will enlarge and they will start to create threat towards Mughals. So Mughals wanted to keep the Central Asian balance as such, that dynamics should not be changed. So they refused this tripartite alliance. Okay, and I mean, if the Mughals had a stronger navy, they could have directly say set up a very good relationship, very close alliance with the Turks. But during those times, if you remember, Mughals never paid too much attention to the navy. Okay, so that is a huge drawback at this point of time. Clear? Anyway, all these political aspects, these religious, sectarian aspects, etc., basically shaped the foreign policy of Mughals. Everything, also not having a powerful navy, all these factors contributed to the shaping of a foreign policy for Mughals. Now we are going to see Akbar and the Uzbeks. Clear? A bit dry portion. I know the Central Asian politics, new kingdoms come in and it begins to create some confusion. Don't worry, just read it afterwards and you will understand it very well. Okay, so let's see Akbar and Uzbeks. So Persia, Iran, earlier had extended help to Akbar's grandfather and father. Okay, if you remember, when Babur was ousted from Samarkand, Iranian rulers helped Babur initially. I hope you remember that. But eventually they were also defeated. That is why Babur had to flee to Kabul. So they had helped Babur or Akbar's grandfather. When Humayun lost everything to Sher Shah, he was also given refuge in the Iranian kingdom. So Akbar's father was also helped by the Persians. Okay, so in general, Iranians had very good relationship between themselves and Mughals. Okay, so they were very close with the Safavid Empire. Now, around this time, territorial power of the Uzbeks started to rise very rapidly under a very powerful king named as Abdullah Khan Uzbek. Okay, Abdullah Khan Uzbek was a very powerful ruler of Uzbekistan or the Uzbek dynasty, and the power of Uzbeks started to grow rapidly around this period. And Akbar is in the throne right now. Okay, in India, Akbar is in the throne. In 1572-73 period, Abdullah Khan Uzbek seized the Balkh region. Okay, Balkh and Badakhshan, these two areas are actually a kind of buffer between Mughals and Uzbeks. Okay, so if this is kind of a neutral zone, okay, in the Star Wars terms, if this is kind of a neutral zone. So the Mughals do not put too much pressure into this, and Uzbeks also did not put pressure into it. So as long as this was, not annexed by either of these kingdoms, this area, the Balkh and Badakhshan, acted as a buffer between Mughal India and Uzbekistan. And this balance is now threatened by Abdullah Khan Uzbek by seizing Balkh region. Now, in 1577, Abdullah Khan sent an embassy to Akbar, proposing to partition Iran. Okay, one of the rulers of Iran died at that time, and the kingdom was going on a succession battle, and Abdullah Khan Uzbek wanted to take advantage of that situation. So he sent an embassy to Akbar. We can partition the Iran between ourselves. Okay, But the problem is, I mean, he also said that no, united efforts, you can actually release Iraq, Khorasan, and Fars from innovators, that is Shias. So again, they are trying to play the Muslim sectarian card. Akbar, a very liberal personality, did not like the idea. Okay, he did not want to play sectarian strife with these people, which will upset the Central Asian politics. Because of his broad-mindedness, he always knew that a strong Iran was very much essential to keep Uzbeks at check. Okay, if this is divided between Mughals and Uzbeks, then what will happen? This is closer to Uzbeks. Okay, I mean, it doesn't have a natural border with Mughals, but it has a natural border with Uzbeks. So eventually they will take everything on themselves. So Akbar knew this very well. So he wanted a strong Iran to survive. But at the same time, Akbar did not want to pick up a battle with Uzbeks. You don't want a full-fledged battle with Uzbeks, but at the same time, you want a strong Iran. So this was the key to Akbar's foreign policy. Okay, you have two goals: not to pick up a fight with Uzbeks, number one, and number two, make sure a very strong and powerful Iran is still there. So now Abdullah Uzbek approached the Ottoman Sultan. And as I mentioned earlier, a tripartite alliance was proposed, and Akbar sent a return embassy to Abdullah Uzbek, in which it was pointed out that differences in law and religion could not be regarded as a sufficient ground for conquest. So this tripartite alliance was basically rejected by Akbar, and he sent an embassy saying that the differences between law and religion is not enough ground for conquest. Just because they believe in a different faith, that doesn't invite conquest. Okay, but eventually, as time went on, and Akbar consolidated things in India and all, we see that there is a growing interest for Akbar in Central Asian politics. Okay, and one of the best examples for this aspect is that he gave refuge to a Timurid prince named as Mirza Sulaiman, who has been ousted from Badakhshan by his grandson. All right, so basically giving refuge to a fleeing king, that is a political decision. Clear? By doing so, he has basically earned a distress or a kind of enmity between the rulers of Central Asia who ousted this particular king and is in a very awkward position. So this political doing of Akbar basically puts forth the fact that Akbar is very much interested in Central Asian politics. So once this was done, once this refuge was taken, Khyber Pass was made fit for wheeled traffic. And due to the fear of the Mughals, the gates of Balkh were usually kept closed by Uzbeks. Okay, and the Uzbeks and the rulers of Badakhshan, I mean the grandson who ousted Mirza Sulaiman, they were afraid of the Mughals. So they basically shut down the passage towards their kingdom, in the Khyber Pass region. The gates of this Balkh region was basically shut almost always to prevent a Mughal attack into Badakhshan. In 1585, Abdullah Khan Uzbek suddenly conquered Badakhshan. Okay, Badakhshan was now in the hands of the grandson of Mirza Sulaiman, and now it went into the hands of Uzbeks themselves. Okay, so Mirza Sulaiman and the person who ousted Mirza Sulaiman, his grandson, both of them came to India and sought help from Akbar. Okay, both of them came to India and they asked Akbar's help to reclaim their lost territories. And in India, what was going on? Akbar's half-brother Mirza Hakim, who was continuously rebelling against Akbar, he had died. And Akbar has already annexed Kabul to his dominions. And by this annexation of Kabul into Mughal Empire, finally, India, the Mughal Empire and Uzbek Empire have a shared boundary. Okay, so Badakhshan and Balkh were the regions of buffer. Okay, and the king of Balkh, named as Mirza, he was ousted by his own grandson. All right, And then Uzbekistan basically captured this region. Not Uzbekistan, the Uzbek power captured this region. So both the Mirza and grandson, both of them appealed towards the Mughal Empire and appealed towards Akbar. Meanwhile, Akbar has annexed Kabul region here. So basically, this entire territory is now Mughal and all this territory is Uzbek. So now they are sharing a common boundary. So now they are facing each other firsthand. Okay, I hope you understood. Clear. Uzbeks succeeded in capturing from Iran most of the areas they had coveted in Khorasan. It appeared best to Akbar to come in terms with the Uzbeks. Okay, I mean, Akbar did not want a war at this time. Okay, a war in this region, a prolonged war. Uzbek is a very powerful dynasty, so he did not want to engage in a full-fledged war. So Akbar tried to avoid a war, and finally an agreement was made. And according to this agreement, the Hindu Kush mountains was set as the rough boundary of these two empires. Okay, so everything west of Hindu Kush went to the Uzbeks, and everything east of Hindu Kush went to Mughals. So what this means is that Mughals are basically giving up their interest in Badakhshan and Balkh region, which were towards the west of Hindu Kush, and Uzbeks will not be claiming Kabul and Kandahar, which are in the eastern part of Hindu Kush. This was not officially made as a statement, but this is what this treaty implied. Understood? So basically, Uzbeks and Mughals are trying to achieve some kind of peace. Anyway, by this agreement, Akbar completed his objective of establishing a scientific defensible frontier by acquiring Kandahar in 1595. And by doing so, we have the scientific frontier of northwestern India, that is the Kabul-Kandahar Ghazni line. This is why Akbar is credited to have settled the northwestern affairs of India. Okay, when we studied about Akbar, we studied what are his major contributions. Two of them. One is consolidating the Mughal power in India. Second one, establishing the northwestern frontier line, the scientific northwestern frontier, that is Kabul-Kandahar Ghazni line. This is how Akbar does it. Okay, through his foreign policy and through his diplomacy and all. Rather than picking up a full-fledged battle, he did it through diplomacy. Now let's see what is the relations with Iran and the question of Kandahar. Okay, despite this treaty and despite setting up that boundary and all, still, obviously there were some issues between each other. So we are going to see what are those. Any questions? No. So continuing. Now, as far as Mughals and the Iranians were concerned, Kandahar was the only problem between them. Okay, both of them wanted Kandahar. Iranians and Mughals, I already told you, they were great friends. Okay, from the time of Babur, they were friends. But both of them wanted Kandahar. Why? Because Kandahar is a very prominent strategic region. It controlled the trade route for one. It controlled a pilgrimage route, a very strategic position, which basically protected India from any kind of foreign invasion. So everyone wanted Kandahar. Okay, and the fort of Kandahar is one of the most powerful forts in South Asia. Okay, I mean, we will later see that even the strongest guns and artillery of the Mughals could not penetrate the Kandahar fort. So that is one of the most powerful forts of South Asia, probably. So because of all these reasons, Kandahar was very much, a kind of candy for both Mughals and Iranians or Persians. But anyway, Kabul-Kandahar Ghazni line represented a strategic and logical frontier. And why? Because this is a natural line of defense. We have the Hindu Kush mountains. So the nature itself is providing this boundary line. Just like Himalayas are giving us the boundary. Okay, northeastern part of India is protected because of the natural boundary set by Himalayas. So Hindu Kush mountains are doing the same thing here. The Kabul-Kandahar Ghazni line itself was a natural barrier for any other future possible invasions towards India. Okay, Kandahar was a very rich and fertile province and was the hub of movement of men and goods between India and Central Asia. But it was not that much important for Persians. Not as to Mughals. Okay, as far as Persians were concerned, They wanted to control the trade, that's all. But for Mughals, this was a strategic area, this was a defense, etc. etc. But anyway, there occurred a period when both these powers wanted to take control of Kandahar. So the ruler of Iran at that time was Shah Tahmasp. Okay, Shah Tahmasp. And he captured Kandahar during the time of Humayun's death. Akbar was very young at that time, only 13 years of age. So he took control of Kandahar after the death of Humayun. Akbar did not try to regain that at all. Okay, at that point of time, Akbar was not at all interested in regaining that area. But he eventually regained it only when Uzbeks started to pose a threat to Mughals. Okay, when Uzbeks started to pose a threat to Mughals, immediately he wanted to have a strong line of defense, and then Akbar tried to conquer Kandahar. Until then, Akbar had no intention of conquering Kandahar. Let it go to Iran. So, despite Iran conquering Kandahar, the relationship between Iran and Mughals went on very cordially. All right, Shah Abbas I, one of the greatest rulers of Iran, the Safavid dynasty. He wanted to have a very good relationship with the Mughals. So he also both Akbar and Shah Abbas I maintained very cordial relationship. If you have gone through the NCERT textbook, you might have seen an image where Jahangir and Shah Abbas is actually hugging each other on top of a globe. Okay, this is not a realistic painting. This is an imaginary portrait. There, Jahangir and Shah Abbas has never met in person. Okay, some artists just thought about such a situation and painted it. And this actually shows what was the kind of relationship between Mughals and Safavids at that time. It was that much cordial. But it did not last very long. In 1620, Shah Abbas sent a polite request to Jahangir for restoration of Kandahar and made preparations to attack this fort. Okay, remember, let me just repeat this once more. The earlier ruler, Shah Tahmasp, actually conquered Kandahar from after the death of Humayun. Akbar reconquered it later on, thereby bringing the Mughal boundary towards in close relationship with Uzbeks. And again, now the Iranian ruler Shah Abbas has politely requested Jahangir to give this territory back to Iran. At the same time, along with this request, he was also preparing a very strong army to gain it back. So Jahangir was taken by surprise. He was not at all expecting such a thing to happen. Very cordial relationship is going on. Why would you want to ruin it? So this was a total shock for Jahangir. So because of the bad relationship with Uzbeks, diplomatically also Mughal India was now isolated. Okay, Iran was one kingdom with which they had very good relationship. Now other kingdoms are very far away. Uzbeks are not at the talking terms right now. So diplomatically, Jahangir is isolated and militarily also unprepared. Okay, so hasty preparations were actually made for saving Kandahar and all, but Jahangir asked his son Shah Jahan to take control of Kandahar and protect it against Safavids and all. But you know what happened? The story was explained at the beginning. Shah Jahan refused to go and it went into rebellion, etc., etc. And anyway, Kandahar was lost for Mughals. Okay, I think I explained that story at the beginning. So again, Kandahar went to Iran. But Shah Abbas did not want to have a bad relationship with Mughals. Okay, so he tried to erase this bitterness through sending various embassies, gifts, etc., etc. to Jahangir. But once the trust is lost, it's lost. Okay, the relationship between Iran and Mughals never came to that kind of levels ever again. The trust between Jahangir and Shah Abbas was broken. And in 1629, Shah Abbas died. Okay, natural causes, Shah Abbas died. Obviously, when the ruler died, there was a war of succession and there were plenty of disturbances in Iran. and Shah Jahan was in rule in India. Shah Jahan induced Ali Mardan Khan, the Persian governor of Kandahar, to defect to the side of Mughals. Okay, so when things were completely of an utter chaos in Persia or in Iran, Shah Jahan basically tried to gain the uh, loyalty of the Persian governor to the Mughal Empire, and thereby bringing Kandahar back to Mughals. Clear? So here starts Shah Jahan's Balkh campaign. Very important area in history, the Balkh campaign of Shah Jahan. So I hope you understood the thing about Kandahar. Okay, I hope I do not have to explain it again. Initially, it was with Mughals, but after the death of Humayun, it went to Iran, and then Akbar reconquered it. Shah Abbas took it from Jahangir, and Shah Jahan finally took it back from Iranians. Clear? Anyway, finally Kandahar was in the hands of Mughals. Now, Shah Jahan was more concerned with the serious danger of recurrent Uzbek attacks on Kabul. Already I told you, Uzbeks were not close friends of Mughals. There occurred occasional skirmishes between both armies, and Shah Jahan was worried about this. Okay, both Bukhara and Balkh had come under the control of Nazar Muhammad. Okay, Nazar Muhammad, the ruler of the region at that time. Balkh region and Bukhara region came under the control of Nazar Muhammad. The son of Nazar Muhammad, named as Abdul Aziz, okay, he conducted a campaign against his father Nazar. So now only Balkh remained under the control of Nazar, and Abdul Aziz took away Bukhara. Balkh and Bukhara are two important regions in Central Asia. Everybody wants it. And here, especially both Uzbeks and Mughals want it. And Nazir Muhammad was in control of both the regions, but his own son rebelled against him and took over one part of the territory. So Nazir Muhammad appealed towards Shah Jahan for help. Okay, Nazir Muhammad, who has the control of the Balkh region right now, he appealed for help from Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was very happy. Okay, I mean, he knew the importance of Balkh region. He knew the importance of maintaining a good relationship with whoever is ruling this Balkh region. So when Nazir Muhammad himself asked for help from Shah Jahan deputed a large army under the Prince Murad to help Nazir Muhammad. Okay, and Murad was supposed to do everything to help Nazir Muhammad, whatever it is. Shah Jahan wanted a very friendly relationship at Bukhara as well. Okay, but Murad's behavior completely ruined things. Okay, I mean, basically they got it. Bukhara region was also taken back, but Murad's behavior afterwards was, ended up as a disaster. After the, Mughal army vanquished the rebellion and Bukhara was taken back, Murad marched towards Balkh. Okay, Balkh is where Nazir Muhammad is staying. He marched towards Balkh and entered the fort of Balkh with a huge army. So Nazir Muhammad thought that Murad is now coming to attack me. Okay, I mean, basically Murad did not want to do that, but without the permission of Nazir Muhammad, Murad entered the fort. So this made Nazir Muhammad think that Murad has now conquered Bukhara and he is now trying to conquer Balkh. And Nazir Muhammad was not in a position to attack the Mughal army, so Nazir Muhammad fled towards Iran. He sought refuge and stayed in Iran for a long time. So now what is the situation? The ruler of Balkh has fled. So Mughals can't just leave. Okay, I mean, Mughals had no intention of annexing Balkh at this point of time. But since the ruler fled, there is a vacuum. Mughals can't simply leave. That will put the entire area into complete misery. Okay, it will be a complete confusion, utter chaos, anarchy without a ruler. So the situation basically forced Mughals to take power of Balkh. The thing is, obviously, the population in Balkh was not happy with it and they were completely hostile against Mughals. Shah Jahan withdrew Murad from the region and he posted the other son, Aurangzeb. Okay, Murad, Shah Jahan has three sons, Dara Shikoh, Murad, and Aurangzeb. So Murad was the person who did all these things. His blunder actually cost the entire Balkh campaign, and so Murad was called back by Shah Jahan, and Aurangzeb was placed in his place. Okay, and negotiations were conducted with the Uzbeks. Nasir Muhammad at this time also approached the Mughals for restoration of his empire. After some negotiations and all, after Nasir Muhammad understood what was going on and all, he came back and he approached the Mughals and asked for restoration of his empire. Shah Jahan decided in favor of Nasir Muhammad. Okay, he did not want to side with the Uzbeks, so he sided with Nasir Muhammad, and he was ready to restore the empire. Only problem is, Shah Jahan demanded an apology and a submission of Nasir Muhammad to Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb is the person who is controlling that region now. So Nasir Muhammad, if he wants the kingdom back, first go and apologize to Aurangzeb, and then you can have your kingdom back. This was a blunder. Why? Because no king who has any kind of self-respect will fall for this. Correct, right? Basically, you came to my kingdom, took it away from me, and now you are asking me to apologize. What kind of a deal is that? Okay, so this was a blunder committed by Shah Jahan. Okay, so Mughals left Balkh region in October 1647. Okay, as winter was approaching and the supplies in Balkh was becoming very less. There was the Uzbeks were starting to cause trouble, etc., etc. Various factors. Mughals decided to leave the Balkh region. And on their way back, they had to suffer a huge loss. Because of the constant attacks of Uzbeks, the hostile population, lack of resources, oncoming winter, all these things basically harassed the Mughals throughout the way. The only reason that they were successfully able to come back was because of the strong stand of Aurangzeb. Okay, Aurangzeb was a very able personality, and because of his firmness, Mughal army finally managed to come back without too much loss. Clear? So Shah Jahan, if we think about it, we might think that Shah Jahan is trying to establish more power, towards Central Asian region. We already have the Kanpur, Kandahar, Ghazni line, and Balkh and Badakhshan, etc., are Bokhara, etc., are outside that line. So some historians say that Shah Jahan was trying to fix a different line of defense altogether, which is beyond the Kabul, Kandahar, Ghazni line. But this is not actually true. Shah Jahan did not had any intention of moving the frontier towards the Amud area. Amud area is the Oxus region, okay, the region we are talking about. The other name is Amud area. Shah Jahan had no intention of putting this as the new defense line. Some historians say that Shah Jahan also wanted to conquer Samarkand and Farghana because they were the initial homes of Mughals. Okay, initially Babur was in Samarkand, so it is his original home. So some historians say that Shah Jahan was gradually expanding towards that region to conquer these two areas. That is also not true. Shah Jahan did not want any of that. Okay, but still he had to go for all these things because of some mistaken beliefs and some lack of good judgments in that region. But anyway, as far as this Balkh campaign is concerned, we can say that militarily this campaign was a success. Mughals were never beaten. Bukhara was taken. Balkh, it is under the control of Mughals anyway. They gave them back to Nasir Muhammad, but still, Balkh is very much a Mughal territory. No army managed to defeat the Mughals. Mughals were victorious all around. So militarily, this was a very good campaign. So temporarily, the Mughal prestige was very high throughout the world. The Mughals basically, prevented an Uzbek attack, took control of Balkh, Bukhara. So the military prestige went up immediately. But in all other sense, this campaign was a disaster. Okay, so it was a success in the military sense, but it was beyond the strength of the Mughals to maintain their influence in Balkh for any length of time. Politically also, it was very difficult to do that. Because why? Just think about it. Kabul-Kandahar-Ghazni line gives them a natural defense. The Hindu Kush mountains acts as a natural barrier. So they had a huge advantage here. This one, Balkh and Bukhara, etc. are beyond that line. And there is nothing that gives that kind of advantage if the Mughals tried to maintain that place. And it was exposed to the Uzbeks. Okay, so in that sense, politically and geographically, there is nothing to gain from maintaining power over Balkh or Bukhara. Strategically also, it was a waste of time. So apart from military aspect, every other in all other aspects, the Balkh campaign of Shah Jahan was a blunder. It was not necessary to do that. Okay, even I mean he did it because of Nasir Muhammad's request for help, and he should have done it in a very friendly manner. After conquering Bukhara, I mean he should have maybe sent embassies to Nasir Muhammad and with his permission entered the fort and made friendly relationship with him, etc., etc. But Murad's activity basically destroyed all of these things. Okay, and Shah Jahan's mistaken demand of demanding an apology from Nasir Muhammad, destroyed the friendship also. So overall, Balkh campaign was a failure, except in the military sense. But anyway, some good things also came out of it. The Balkh campaign prevented the rise of a united Uzbek state, which would have been a danger to Mughals. That is true. That is correct. By creating these kinds of outposts beyond the Kabul-Kandahar-Ghazni line, Shah Jahan made sure that there is no imminent threat towards Kabul. Kabul was the border region. Okay, Kabul, then you have the buffer region, then the Uzbeks. Uzbeks already conquered this buffer region, so Kabul is the border. Okay, so by taking some outposts beyond the Hindu Kush mountains in the Balkh and Bukhara region, Shah Jahan made sure that Kabul is not under imminent threat from Uzbeks. So that is the positive aspect that comes out of it. Now we are going to see the Mughal-Persian relations, the last phase. No questions, so continuing. So the setback in Balkh led to the revival of Uzbek hostility in Kabul region and Afghan tribal unrest in the Khyber Ghazni area, and emboldened the Persians to attack and conquer Kandahar. So if you remember earlier, when Bukhara was taken by Abdul Aziz, Nasir Muhammad asked Shah Jahan for help. Okay, at the same time, Uzbeks also tried to negotiate. Okay, they thought that they will negotiate with the Mughal Empire and they will split this empire and take half for themselves and give the half to Mughals. But Shah Jahan did not accept the Uzbek offer. He offered to help Nasir Muhammad. So basically, Uzbeks are not happy. So they entered into a hostile kind of relationship with Mughals. At the same time, Afghan tribals were also causing troubles in the Ghazni Khyber area. And Iran, using all this opportunity, conquered Kandahar in the year 1649. So these three things basically caused a huge mess for Shah Jahan. This shattered the pride of the Mughal Empire for a long period of time. Okay, so what did Shah Jahan do? Shah Jahan had to gain back that kind of prestige and pride and all. So he decided to send a military campaign, to somehow get all this back. 3 major campaigns were sent in order to recover Kandahar. First attack was launched by Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb was already positioned there, if you remember, from the Balkh campaign. So Aurangzeb was given the first chance. Okay, he was deputed to recover Kandahar. Aurangzeb won the battle. Okay, outside the fort, Aurangzeb won. He defeated the Persians. But no matter what he did, he couldn't conquer the fort. Kandahar fort, that is why I told you Kandahar fort is one of the strongest in Asia. Okay, Aurangzeb with his best efforts could not conquer Kandahar fort. Outside the fort, the battle was won. Okay, so this was the issue. Then again, so that campaign failed. A second attempt was again led by Aurangzeb 3 years later. That also ended the same way. Aurangzeb could defeat everyone outside the fort, but he can't enter the fort. The fort was so well guarded by Persians. Okay, So finally, Shah Jahan decided to change the leadership. In 1653, the other son, Dara Shikoh, the eldest son, Dara Shikoh, who was the favorite of Shah Jahan, was sent to conquer this fort. And Dara Shikoh went with a magnanimous army. Okay, huge army was taken. Huge artilleries were also taken. Two very huge artilleries used to destroy forts and all were towed all the way from India till Kandahar region. Okay, two very big artillery weapons. With the help of elephants and all carts and all, it was towed all the way to Kandahar, in order to conquer it. Despite all this, still Dara too couldn't do anything. Okay, so from this, it is very clear that Kandahar fort is so strong that if it is led by an able general, that fort won't fall. And Persians made an example out of it. Okay, so with the growing enfeeblement of both the Uzbeks and the Safavids, Kandahar no longer had the same strategic importance as it had earlier. Because of this, infighting between Safavids and Uzbeks. Okay, eventually, Uzbeks and Safavids were, in loggerheads. They were continuing their fighting and all. So, as far as India was concerned, Kandahar is not anymore that important now. Okay, that strategic importance is lost. Clear? So, then why did we try to reconquer this fort back? If there is no strategic importance, why would we want to conquer it? We want to conquer it because it was a blow to the pride of Mughal throne. Okay, only to gain back that pride did Shah Jahan went into this campaign. That's all. More than strategic interests, it was this pride and prestige which made this campaign. But don't misinterpret this statement by thinking that Mughal Empire has lost its power or prestige or anything. No, Mughal Empire was still at its peak. Okay, it was at the height of its power, and it was very much still so even under the time of Aurangzeb. Nothing had gone down there, but this was a minor setback in history. That's all. So Aurangzeb, when he came to the throne, he decided not to continue this futile conquest over Kandahar, and he quietly resumed the diplomatic relationship with Iran. In 1668, Shah Abbas II, the ruler of Iran, insulted a Mughal envoy that was dispatched by Aurangzeb. He also, basically insulted Aurangzeb himself. This made him very angry, Aurangzeb. So what did he do? He quickly patched up a very mighty Mughal army, and he decided to go to war. But it was not required. Okay, why? Because when all these preparations were done, Shah Abbas II died. Okay, I mean, now it's not required at all. So basically, by the death of this ruler and the confusions that arose in that Iran afterwards, all Persian danger to Indian frontiers disappeared. Okay, by the death of Shah Abbas II, there was no more threat from Persia to India for about 50 years until the emergence of Nadir Shah. Okay, during the time of Muhammad Shah Rangila, we will study about Nadir Shah, who invaded India, took away a lot of wealth. Okay, so until then, we won't have any more attacks from Persians. By the death of Shah Abbas II, that was settled. So, in short, Mughals succeeded in maintaining a scientific frontier in the northwest. Okay, based on Hindu Kush, with Kandahar as its outer bastion. That's true. The Kabul-Kandahar Ghazni line was never crossed. That is still very safe. Kandahar was just an outside bastion. Okay, and that was also, basically saved for the time being. When the Shah Abbas II's power, he died, Kandahar was able to, Mughals were able to have an influence in Kandahar also. So that line was never breached. Clear? So they managed to stick with this defense line, and their foreign policy was based basically on the defense of India. This is the short form, the summary of everything that we said so far. Kabul-Kandahar Ghazni line is so important and for defense of India. Similarly, the Mughal foreign policy was also solely based on the defense of India. If you look at it, never once in history of Mughals did they try to go into offensive mode towards their foreign neighbors. they never tried to attack Uzbeks. They never tried to annex, Iranian regions or anything. Everything that they did were done to defend India against the other attacks. So that the basis of Mughal foreign policy was defense of India. Very important, useful for mains. Okay. Also, Mughals insisted on relations of equality with leading Asian nations. When Uzbeks tried to play the sectarian card, Akbar denied it. Tripartite agreement was also denied. Mughals wanted a stable Central Asia. They wanted equality between all the nations in that region. They did not want to enter into a Shia-Sunni fight. So this was another chief characteristic of Mughal foreign policy. Friendship with Persia, another important point. Despite all these things, there was cordial relationship between Persia and Mughals. I told you, even during the time of Jahangir, after what Shah Abbas I did to Jahangir, still there was some kind of cordial relationship between Persia and Mughals. So that is another prominent feature of Mughal foreign policy. So we have 1, 2, 3, and finally, the Mughals used their foreign policy to promote India's commercial interests. Kabul and Kandahar were the twin gateways of India's trade with Central Asia. So these 4 points are very vital as far as Mughal policy in foreign affairs is concerned. So please keep them in mind. These are the 4 pillars of Mughal foreign policy towards Central Asian region. Now we are going to see the final topic for the day. Growth of administration, that is the Mansabdari system and the Mughal army. No questions so far, so continuing. So I think you remember what the Mansabdari system and all. It was the machinery developed by Akbar with the help of Todarmal and all, land revenue policy. Okay, and maintained. This was continually maintained under Jahangir and Shah Jahan as well, with some minor modifications. Okay, and as far as the military is concerned, Mughals favored a mixed contingent. Men were drawn from all classes. Okay, Turani, Irani, Indians, Afghans, Rajputs. It was a mixed army. Single army. Army made from one particular contingent was given. That kind of privilege was given only to Mughal army and Rajput army. Mughals and Rajputs can have armies of entirely Rajputs and Mughals. In all other cases, it should be mixed. Okay, I think we studied about that in the previous class. But anyway, that all those practices were continued by Jahangir and Shah Jahan as well. Jahangir introduced a small amendment in the administration that was set up by Akbar. Okay, in the Mansabdari system, Jahangir administered a small change. So he introduced a system called Du Aspa Shi Aspa. Du Aspa Shi Aspa. So Mansabdari, Du Aspa Shi Aspa. Okay, so Jahangir introduced a system whereby selected nobles could be allowed to maintain a large quota of troopers without raising their Zat rank. Usually, the number of troopers are based on their Zat rank. So now Jahangir has changed that, and according to this new policy, without raising the Zat rank, the noble can keep a higher number of army. Okay, so literally a trooper can have, say, 2 or 3 horses. Clear? So that which implies that a Mansabdar holding this rank had to maintain and was paid for double the quota of troopers indicated by his Savar rank. So, for example, to make it more clear, think that you have 3000 Zat rank and 3000 Savar rank, Du Aspa, Shi Aspa. Okay, according to this, the person will have to maintain around 6000 horses. According to Shi Aspa, Du Aspa. If Shi Aspa, Du Aspa modification is not there, then that noble has to maintain only 3000 horses. But according to Shi Aspa, Du Aspa, you can each of them can have 2 or 3 horses. So around 6000 horses can be maintained by each noble now. This is the modification made by Jahangir. Okay, I hope now it is clear. Du Aspa, Shi Aspa system, double or triple, minimum double. Clear. Normally, no Mansabdar was given a Savar rank which was higher than his Zat rank. That is another important point for prelims. Keep in mind. Usually, no Mansabdar was given a Savar rank, that is cavalry, which is higher than the Zat rank. So if Zat rank is 3000, the maximum Savar rank is also 3000. It can't go beyond that, usually. When Shah Jahan came to the throne, he aimed to drastically reduce the number of Savars. Okay, I mean, certain financial instability, etc. were there. So Shah Jahan decided to reduce the number of Savars. So according to this system, which was bought by Shah Jahan, Noble was expected to maintain a quota of only 1/3 of his Savar rank, and in some circumstances 1/4 only. Clear? So if a noble was required to maintain, say, 3000 horses, then he can actually maintain only 1000. That is enough. You don't have to maintain a lot more than that. In certain cases, 1/4 of 3000. Okay, 3000 by 4 was enough. This is the new modification brought by Shah Jahan. Some more modifications are there. For example, although the salaries of Mansabdars were stated in rupees, they were generally not paid in cash, but by assigning them a jagir. This is again done by Shah Jahan. Then, by devising a careful scale of gradations and laying down meticulous rules of business, the Mughals bureaucratized the nobility. So, using this system of Mansabdari or the Mansabdar system, the Mughals basically bureaucratized the entire nobility. It is not anymore based on the favor of the empire or nothing like that. It's not based on anything else, but solely based on Mansabdari system. Clear-cut, bureaucratic procedure. Okay, but despite having achieved this, the Mughals could not take away the feudal attachment to the land. Okay, I mean, they could give as much as they want to the nobles, but they can't take it away with that ease. Okay, that will earn them displeasure and it causes anarchy, etc., etc. So, despite having achieved a bureaucratic kind of nobility, still they were not able to completely throw away the feudal nature of Mughal nobility. And because of the increasing number of Mansabdars and all, the revenue department had a huge task. Okay, they had to maintain a register indicating all the assessed income, etc., etc. Okay, this income is known as Jama. Okay, the income that is assessed on various areas is known as Jama. So a huge record of that has to be kept in order to keep track of all these things. And that book, or say that record, is known as Jama Dami. Okay, it is actually assessed based on dams. Okay, Jama Dami is basically the assessed income, and it is not based on rupees, it was based on dams. It is an extra point for prelims, that's all. Now, as time went on, number of Mansabdars kept on growing. Okay, Akbar started the system, but during the time of Jahangir, it grew higher, Shah Jahan, and then by the time of Aurangzeb, it was too much. Clear? And as this went on, financial resources of the state started to become very strained. Okay, Mansabdari system, you are supposed to give a jagir to all these people. Okay, you would, I mean, it can only go on for a long, some time. Afterwards, there won't be any more jagirs to give. Okay, no more land to give as jagir. If you take land out of Khalisa land, then the Mughal treasury will start to lose. So this Mansabdars, when they started, the numbers started growing on, the Mughal treasury began to have some economic strains. And even the modifications done by Shah Jahan was not adequate. Okay, Shah Jahan said that a noble of a particular Zat rank had to maintain only 1/3 or even 1/4 of the Savar. So he basically reduced the pressure on the nobles and all. So he can pay accordingly, comparatively minimum amount, lower amount. Even that modification was not enough to keep things together. Quota of the troopers and horses a noble had to maintain out of his Savar rank was again further reduced. Okay, so this initial modification was not adequate, so it was further reduced down, so that you can even further reduce the salary and maybe lessen the economic strain on the treasury. So that also not adequate. Then another modification was done by Shah Jahan, and salaries of the Mansabdars were put on a month scale. Okay, 10 months, 8 months, 6 months, or say 5 months, etc., etc. And their obligations were also made accordingly. So if in 1 year somebody is supposed to maintain 3000 houses or something, then according to the new system, if that person is, Mansabdar is put on a 6 months scale, then he can maintain only 1500. Okay, so basically by dividing it into 10 months, 8 months, 6 months, etc., etc., Shah Jahan further took away the pressure from Mughal treasury. Understood? I hope it's clear. If in 1 year a noble had to maintain 3000 houses according to the existing system, then according to the two system, if he got the scale of 6 months, he had to maintain only the half of it. If he got the scale for say 9 months, it's not 9 months, 9 months is not there. If he got it for 10 months, then he had to maintain how much? 3000 into 10 by 12. So basically, you are paying for only that much period of time. So the amount you have to pay is comparatively less. This was the novel idea by Shah Jahan. So various such amendments were issued in order to save the Mughal treasury from having to take too much strain. Okay, and paying salaries by cash were also started to practice. Earlier, it was strictly based on jagirs, but now once this monthly scale was set up, it was not anymore paid alone in jagirs. Cash payments were also started very well. During Shah Jahan's time, more and more areas were brought under agriculture, under cultivation. Production of cash crops were increased. So anything that could do good to economy was tried to be accomplished. Clear? So slowly, more and more revenue started to come into the Mughal treasury. But the thing is that despite all these high production and new lands coming under agriculture and etc., as more and more cash came into the treasury, more and more mansabdars also started to come up. So this always created issues for the Mughal throne. Okay, so this advantage of having that high production and high revenue income was lost because there is a higher number of mansabdars now. Clear? We will see during the time of Aurangzeb also, this is one of the biggest issues that he faced. So drastic reductions of the houses or the remounts during Shah Jahan's reign must therefore have adversely affected the efficiency of Mughal army. This is another important fact. In order to save the economic stress, save from the economic stress, Shah Jahan allowed a lesser number of houses. But the problem is when that happens, the Mughal cavalry will lose the efficiency. Earlier, at least 2 horses were kept per soldier. Okay, so if one horse is tired, it can be switched to the other. So in the war, the Mughal army is very efficient. But now, it's like the number of horses is extremely low. So the Mughal cavalry has also began to become a bit inefficient. Despite this, the Mansabdari system worked properly under Shah Jahan. Why? Because Shah Jahan was a very meticulous and very able administrator, and he had a group of men who he had appointed at very high positions who showed that kind of competency. Because he had that kind of honest and loyal people, and because of his own personal integrity, Mansabdari system was kept intact by Shah Jahan. Mughals, reaches its zenith under Shah Jahan. So despite this economic strength, still Shah Jahan managed to preserve Mughal economy. No stress. He was able to manage everything. Okay, so he paid careful attention to the choice of right persons for service. Strict discipline was made. Mughal nobility, etc., were highly dependable body by now because of the bureaucratic nature. Okay, so overall, Mughals, were extremely well. Mughal administration or Mughal economy was well taken care of by Shah Jahan. Now regarding the army, okay, this is the subheading of the previous heading. So this is the last one, Mughal army. Only a couple more slides remaining. Cavalry was obviously the principal arm of Mughal army. Okay, no needless to say that again. I have already explained about the importance of cavalry plenty of times in previous classes. Okay, so cavalry was the principal arm and the Mansabdars provided the overwhelming proportion of it. That's also true. Okay, the standing army of the ruler was a huge army, yet the major crux of Mughal army came from the Mansabdars. They assembled the army during the time of war. You know that. Apart from this cavalry, there are certain other sections of Mughal army as well. For example, there is a group of people known as the gentleman troopers. Okay, gentleman troopers, or commonly known as Ahadis. Okay, Ahadis are also known as gentleman troopers, and they had very high salaries compared to other troopers, and they enjoyed much more trust with the emperor. Very important positions like, say, most of the clerks of imperial officers, painters of the court, foremen in royal karkhanas, etc. belong to this group, Ahadis. Compared to other troopers, they were given very high salary also. Now, apart from this, there were other groups as well. For example, skilled musketeers named as Barak Andas. Then you had the bowmen, arrow and bow. They were known as Tir Andas. Emperor also had a personal corps of bodyguards named as Wala Shahis, and also armed palace guards. Okay, now there were another contingent called the footmen, called as Piyadagan. All these are important for prelims. Okay, remember these terminologies. Piyadagan means footmen. Okay, and most of these footmen consisted of matchlock bearers or bandukchi. And this footman consisted of various kinds of people. Even slaves were recruited into this, and it was possible for a slave to become a gentleman trooper, okay, and a Hadi, by rising in the trust of emperor. But usually the foot soldiers had a low status. Among all these categories, the foot soldiers were given the lowest status. But it was possible for one of them to rise into the ranks of Ahadis through his merit. Apart from all these sections, Mughals also had a very powerful war camp of elephants, very well organized park of artillery, and artillery had two sections, one of heavy guns and other of light artillery. Heavy guns used to defend against big attacks and to besiege forts, etc., etc., and light artillery for quick attacks. Initially, in the initial days of Mughals, Ottoman and Portuguese people were employed a lot in the artillery department. If you remember, during Babur's time, while he he conducted the battle of Panipat. Babur had the help of two Ottoman master gunners named as Mustafa and Ustad Ali. Okay, they were Ottoman master gunners. So initially, during the days of Mughal Empire, they took help from Portuguese and Ottomans in the artillery department. But by the time of Aurangzeb, Mughal army was extremely well in this sector. Okay, they improved in the artillery sector very, considerably, and foreigners found employment in artillery department with difficulty. The natives have studied and learned everything from foreigners now, so now they don't need their help. So for a foreigner to get a job in Mughal artillery was a very difficult task. Okay. As I have already said, Mughal infantry, okay, the footmen were given the lower status, and they were actually very ill-disciplined also. Okay, we know from certain historians, contemporary historians, that compared to the Asian or say European armies and all, for example, Francois Bernier, who visited India during the time of Shah Jahan, Dara and all, he writes that Mughal army is very indisciplined and ill-organized compared to European armies. This might be true. Okay, why? Particularly because Mughal army never kept track with science and technology. In Europe, there was the development of a new kind of weapon called the flint gun, much more efficient in a battlefront. And Mughal army did not have access to any of these, so they lagged behind. And this was one of the reasons why Mughal armies, India went down in this sphere while the Europe went ahead. This is the reason why Europeans were able to easily conquer most of the regions in India. We saw what happened in 1857 revolt, etc., etc. Indians were fighting with swords and all, and occasionally with guns and small artilleries and all. Europeans came up with superior class weapons, etc., etc. This is the point where that imbalance starts to come up. Medieval India. But Mughal army was not inferior to Central Asian and Persian armies. That is very true. Okay, all the Asian states lagged behind this science and technology compared to Europeans. But as far as Asian nations were concerned, all of them were of equal stage. Okay, Mughals were never lagging behind Uzbeks or say Iranians or anything. But they all were together lagging behind Europeans. Okay, so Mughals, including the Asian powers except Turkey and say Sultanate of Oman, were deficient of a naval force. That is true. So as far as sea warfare is concerned, none of them had a good navy except Ottoman and Turkey. These two had very formidable navy. We already saw what their navies are able to achieve. Their wars against Portuguese and all. Mughals never paid enough attention to the navy, and other Asian powers also neglected it a lot. And this was a major cause of whatever happened next. Okay, this lack of proper attention towards navy basically gave away India to the seafarers, the Europeans. So here we will stop today, and in the upcoming sessions we will see the last two. We have only 2 more lectures in medieval India. One lecture that will be dealing entirely with economy and culture under Mughals, and another session, the last one, dealing with the disintegration of Mughals. That is the reign of Aurangzeb. Okay, and then you can connect to the modern India class, which we have already completed. So after L16, I will start with ancient India. Any questions? What led to economic recession in Shah Jahan's reign? Plenty of things that we will study in the next class. Okay, economy and society will be taken up in detail in the next class. Today I only took the political aspects. Okay. Then what leads to more number of Jagirs in Shah Jahan's reign? Number is, say, when establishing relationships, okay, say with Rajputs or say with any other influential people in India, always they give huge grants, okay, huge mansabdars to these people. If you remember, Shivaji's father was given, Shaji Bhosle was given a huge Jagir by Jahangir. It was later taken away from him and given to someone else, and he became very angry with it. And that is why he and his son Shivaji, etc., fights with Mughals. Similarly, with to Rajputs also, lots of grants were given, Jagirs were given, because when they were introduced as Mansabdars. So, number of Mansabdars started to increase. And if it was transferable, okay, theoretically it was transferable, but the problem was, nobles did not like the idea of giving up the Mansabdar, the Mansabdari that they got. Okay, so assume that a noble rose to a Mansabdar of 5,000. Okay, and he later on retired. So if that was transferable to someone, it's fine. But if the emperor tried to take it away and give it to someone else, then this noble will not like it and he will rebel. So rather than doing that, forcibly taking it away, Shah Jahan actually gave it allotted fresh ones to different people. Jahangir also did that, Shah Jahan did that. So eventually the numbers started to rise up. By the time of Aurangzeb, was too much. Okay, it was already very high, and so we will study it during the time of Aurangzeb. Although the number of Mansabdari increased, Aurangzeb tried to limit the area given as Mansabdari, and also he tried to pay most of it in cash and all. Okay, we will study all that in the upcoming lessons. Okay, salaries and all, they are paid in cash more than Jagir. In the Shah Jahan's period also, we saw it. He although granted Jagirdari, most of it were paid in cash whenever it was possible. Okay, you have a fixed empire. Without further expansion, there is no new territory which you can allot. You can't take it away from Khalisa land because it will ruin the royal treasury. Okay, so that is the reason. All right. So thank you all for listening. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share with your friends. Thank you for joining. I will upload this slide in this Telegram channel. Please subscribe to this Telegram channel. The link of Telegram channel and Instagram channel has been, modified and put it in the description below. Okay, now if you click it, it will directly take you to that page. Many of you complain that you can't find the Telegram channel. Now, if you click the link, you will definitely be able to find it. Okay, so that's it. Thank you all. See you in the next class.